Hey, welcome back to the next video for My Next Park. In this video, what we're going to do is clean up a couple of bugs that popped up along the way and then move into our park page template so we can dynamically create a dedicated page for each of our national parks. So, a couple of bugs right off the bat. If I start off with yarn dev and I get everything up and running, you'll notice here that our park index is set to 0. But down here with our options, we filtered out just the national parks from park doc designation. But that park index is starting at 0, which is from the entire list, not just from our national parks. So what we can do, just as a kind of a quick fix, is if I refresh this, and I'm still logging out my data. So to show you what I'm talking about, this says Acadia National Park because this is filtering just out of our national parks. But this picture is actually that Abraham Lincoln National Memorial, and we don't want that. So what we can do instead is, this is just kind of a quick fix. You can do this more programmatically if you want, but just coming through all of our data, we can see that Abraham Lincoln is at index 0 and Acadia is at 1. So a quick fix for this is just to put it at 1. So we'll do that. And we've got it at our park index, so that should be good. And we can save it. And now if we flip back over, there's Acadia right from the get-go. The second bug is around the URLs. So this was my lack of planning ahead. If we think back to the last video, we had parks / and then we broke the URL slug into a dashed version, lowercase, of the park. So you can see it's Acadia-National-Park. However, we need to pass in the park code to our URL in order to access the individual park information. So I'll go ahead and just show you how that'll work. Is if we go down to this section here, we don't want the selected title. We actually want the park code. So what we're gonna do is go back up to our this title section here, and instead of grabbing the full name, we're gonna update this to code instead, and we're going to grab the park code, and I'll show you this in the console in a second. And then we're going to update our use effect so that anytime the park index changes, we update the park code. And then the last bit is on this link, instead of having the title and replace all and everything, now what we can do is just go inside these curly braces and do selected.code. And then close off the string, the template literal, and close off the curly braces. And so now let's go ahead and check what that looks like. So just give it a quick refresh. And then what I was talking about is here. So our data, and if I open one of the, I'll open up Acadia. So the park code here, ACAD, is actually what we need in our call to the National Park Service API. And so while having a nice looking hyphenated URL slug is great and all, we want that park code. So that's why I made that update. So now if I hover over the bottom, I can see /parks/ACAD, and that's going to help us generate our individual park pages. So now we can go ahead and get started with actually doing that. So in our pages directory, we are going to make a new folder and call it parks. And then inside of that, we'll create a new file and we'll call it park.js, but make sure you have it inside of square brackets. And so what's going on here is that inside of pages, by creating a folder called parks, we're going to append parks to the end of our URL. So in this case, it's localhost 3000 / parks / whatever our dynamically created park is. If I had park on the top level of pages, it would just be localhost 3000 / whatever our park is. So it doesn't make a huge difference, but it keeps it a little bit cleaner. And if you're going to expand this into a bigger project, then maybe you would follow this kind of pattern of creating something that's a little bit more descriptive in your URL. So for our park page, I'm going to use my ES7 module system blah 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 extension in VS Code to create a functional component, and then I'm going to replace this with park. Then we're going to use a couple of new things. One new thing to be specific, but first we're going to start off with the familiar. So const get static props. We're going to set that equal to an async function. We're going to destructure out our params. So this is actually coming from context, but to make it a little bit cleaner, we'll destructure out params since that's what we need. And then we are going to set up our API call similar to how we did in index. So I'm actually going to just copy all of this and then make some updates. So I'll copy this and paste it, and then we'll make our tweaks. So our URL here changes. We can get rid of this limit since we are only going to be calling one park at a time, and instead replace it with park code. And this is where we needed to update our index file in order to pass along the park code, because now I can take my params, and inside of it there's going to be park. The reason it's called park is because I've named this file square bracket park close square bracket. So if I named this like ID instead, this would be params.id. So params is going to grab the information in your URL after parks. So whatever comes after parks, it's going to grab that information, which in this case is the park code. And we need that park code to then pass along to the National Park Service API. And so we're saying, hey, the park code is that part in the URL after parks. Then we can set our individual park to the response.data, and then our props is our park. Then the second thing that we need is to dynamically generate all of the pages so that Next knows what to build. So with this, we'll have getStaticPaths. This is also going to be an async function. And in this case, we are going to actually grab pretty much this entire same call and setup here with a few tweaks. So we've got the same response, we've got the same parks. Now we can get rid of this return statement here for now. And what we're going to do is set a variable called paths. And this variable is going to contain all of the possible paths that we have in our application, so that when we build this, Next will build all of these pages for us. So we're going to set it equal to parks, which is our response, .data.map, because remember parks has a data array with each of the parks as an object. So for each park, we are going to return implicitly with the parentheses an object where the params are equal to an object with park being set equal to the park.park code. So we're just looping through each individual park's object. So each park had that huge object that we saw just a minute or two ago. And within each of those, there is a park code. So we are telling Next to build all of our pages based off of those park codes. Or excuse me, all of our park pages, because you could do this for other pieces of your website as well. But we're going to build out all of our parks based on that park code. So this way, it's going to dynamically call and populate all of our information from this API, and it can just kind of run through it programmatically. Then we're going to return an object. We'll call it paths, and we'll set the fallback to false so that any page that is hit that is not yet built will just return a 404. Last, to kind of see what's happening here, we'll destructure out our park from our getStaticProps, and then we'll console log our park, and then inside of here we'll just do like a little h1 and call it like park page. So now if we flip back over and let's go to Big Bend. So there's the picture updating. And then if I click on this, Axios is not defined. Okay, so let's go ahead and take care of that real quick. So at the top, we need to import Axios from Axios. And I think that should be good now. Park page, okay, so that's good. And if we inspect it, we go to the console. Here's our park. Our data is an array of 1, and there's all of our information. Cool, so now we can start to actually build out this page. So let's do that. At the top, we're going to need 2 more imports. We're going to grab head from Next/head, and then we're going to grab link as well from Next link. So instead of typing out parks.data at 0. Whatever property we want to access every single time, we're just going to create a variable called park data and set it equal to park.data at 0. So it'll just save us a few characters. It's actually not even really that much, but it just looks a little bit cleaner than having all of the extra stuff. Inside of here, we're going to create our head tag. We're going to give it a title of my next park, and then a pipe, and then we'll do park data dot full name. And then we can just link our standard favicon. And the href. So this is just, you know, if you wanted to add your own, you could do that and just replace the favicon that comes in. And close that off. Get rid of this closing link. And then underneath the head, we can create our main. And for this, let's give it a container class. So this will set a max width, and then MX auto to center it. And then we're going to grab our navigation, our little quote unquote navigation from our index page. And so we'll paste that in here. And since our main tag has a container and marginX auto here, let's put that in our index as well. So on this main tag over in index, I'm just going to paste in the container and marginX auto, just so it's consistent across the board. Again, if this is a bigger project, I might rip this navigation into its own like layout component and then wrap all of my pages and in that layout component, but for this project it's pretty small, so I'm just going to copy and paste it. So we'll save this. We'll save this And let's take a look and see how we're doing so far. All right, so we're bleeding off the page here just for a second. We'll see, we can fix that up in just a second. But we do have our navigation, so that's good. So in this case, it looks like it's the width full that we had before. We are going to want to give this, though, a z index. It looks like it's just z of, we'll say 10. So that way, since it's fixed, if you scroll down, it'll stay at the top. But if you don't put a z index of something higher than 0, what'll happen is it'll start to let the content beneath it bleed through. So this will make sure that our navigation stays on top. Let's take a look. All right, now it's super short. Let's see what we did here. Oh, instead of that full width, let's give this one a container class as well. All right, there we go. Cool. So now it's taking up this max width, and you can see a little bit of space. Depending on the size of your monitor that you're working on right now, you might see it extending to the full edges. So either way is fine. So next, beneath our nav, let's make a header section. And inside of our header, let's give us a div and an h1. And this h1 will be park data dot full name. And then our header, we're going to do something that's a little bit janky, but we're going to do an inline style to set the background image. So remember that each park comes with an array of images. We're going to just grab one of those. So we're going to set our background image to template literal. So we've got backticks. We're going to do URL, parentheses, $, curly braces, park data dot images at 0 dot URL. And let's see how we're looking. All right, so I think you can see it kind of poking out there. Let's apply some styles to actually see this thing. So in our header, we're going to give it a class name of, we'll do background cover, a padding top and bottom of 24, and then we'll do background center. All right, nice. So we're getting an image. This is starting to look a little bit better, and we're getting some actual content. So next, let's style this up a little bit more. So for this, we'll give it a class of text center. And then I like this blue 900 that Tailwind has. It's this kind of dark blue, and I think it plays nicely with the dark green. So this isn't looking awesome yet, but we're going to apply this little overlay behind this so it's easier to read the text, and it's kind of just a cool little effect. So on this div, we're going to give it a class name of background white, opacity 75, and we'll give it a padding top and bottom of 4, and you can see that's 1 rem. All right, cool. I'm digging that. It's easier to see. It's got a kind of a nice little effect. You can still see the stuff in the background. You can play with the opacity as well. You can set it to like 50 or 25 and just see whatever you like best. Next, underneath our header, let's grab a section, and we can do an H2 of about the park. And for here, let's give a class name of text center, text blue 900, and margin bottom of 8. And then our section itself, let's give a class name of padding top and bottom of 8 or 2 rem. And then we can give it a background gray of like 100, which is super light gray, to give it a little bit of pop to differentiate between the different sections. Underneath this H2, we're going to create a div with an image. I'm going to give this a class name of width 64. And then source, I'm going to set this equal to /nature.svg. And then an alt of nature and close it off. And this is, I'm bringing this in so that you'll see this in the repo if you just want to use this image. If you don't, feel free to replace it with whatever image that you like. And then we'll give a paragraph tag with the park data.description. And let's see how we're looking here. We'll need to apply some styling. So we've got our about the park section. You can see it's got a little bit of a lighter gray compared to that white. And we can see our image and our text. So let's split this up and put our text on one half and our image on the other. So for our div underneath the H2, we're going to do class name, and it'll be flex justify between items center. We'll do max width of screen medium. So this is just going to make sure that our text and our image don't go super wide. So we already have a container, but now we're going to set this text maxed width to 768. And then we'll do MX auto and save this. And so already notice that it doesn't go, you don't want it to go all the way off to the edges. You can also fall into the trap of using padding, and then it looks kind of weird on different screens and stuff. So this is kind of a nice little extra container for our content here. So let's get some extra styles here to split this up and make it look a little bit nicer. So our paragraph, let's give this a class name of width half and see how that looks. And we should be good. Nice. Okay, so we've got them sitting nicely next to one another. We've got our content dynamically being generated. There's a place in far west Texas where night skies are dark as coal. These descriptions are awesome. And so now let's go ahead and check out what we've got. If we click back on this My Next Park, it should take us home. Come on now, let's go back. All right, so we've got our home page. Acadia, let's do Glacier. So now we've got Glacier National Park. We've got its image. This one is still static, but now we've got the dynamic content rolling in. So let's make one more section just to play with the data a little bit more. We'll make a like a little like a directions section. So we'll do section with an H2 getting here. Then we'll have a div with another div inside of it. And inside there we'll have a paragraph with the park data.directions info. And then a link with an href pointing to park data dot directions URL, and then we'll just give it a label of directions. And then beneath that div, we'll have another image with a source of, this is my image that I've got through underscore the park. Again, you can find this one in the repo, or you can use your own image. We'll give it an alt of through the park. And then close it off, and then I'm going to make sure that this is in my public folder. There it is. All right, so now saving it. All right, cool. So we've got our image, we've got our content, we've got our directions. So something cool, here's a little cool tailwind thing, is if I go into my, if I notice that I'm going to give this the same class name. And so this isn't a ton, but if I'm doing it over and over and over again, and I especially if I have a bigger site, something that I can do in my index CSS file is create a little utility. So in index CSS, I'm going to create an h2 class, and I'm going to say at apply text center text blue 900 and margin bottom of 8. And then I'm going to hit save. And then over here, instead of having all of my h2 stuff, I'm going to grab that and replace it with h2. And so now, looking here, I've got that same situation, that same set of classes applied to each h2, which is pretty handy. So I'll show you if I change this to like text red 300. I just changed this h2 class, but now you can see it's got that whatever red color is. It looks kind of like a pink. So that's pretty handy. You can do that with different things like buttons or inputs or different things that might share some of the same styles, so that you don't have to type out all of that code for all those class names every single time. All right, so we're here. Let's make this look a little bit better. We can apply some kind of similar styling, but maybe flip it so it's right and left for our image and our text. So back in our park, we're in this section for getting here. For our section, let's do a class name of py8, similar to this section. I'm not going to make a custom utility for that because it's only one property being added, which is that padding, and I'm not going to set a background here. For this div, we're going to give it a class name of flex justify between item center max width screen medium and mx auto. So since these two are identical, you might consider pulling that into a utility. If you want to, go ahead. I'm going to leave it as it is. For this div here with our paragraph tag and our anchor, I'm going to give it a class name of width 1/2. This paragraph, I'm going to give a class name of margin bottom 4. Our anchor tag, I'll set to that color of blue 900. And then for our image, I'll give a class name of width 64. And let's see how that's looking. Get in here, directions, picture, cool. So now if I flip back to the home page, I can pick whatever park that I want. Let's do Zion. Now we've got Zion National Park, and you can play with these images. This one looks kind of blurry, so I might play with some of those properties. It's a little bit tricky with such a high number of images coming in, and you could play with your own, own background image if you wanted to as well. But you can see that the content updates, we've got our description, we've got our directions. Cool. So in this video, we learned about getStaticProps, getStaticPaths, and then that neat little custom utility work for generating classes, reusable classes for Tailwind. In our next video, what we're going to do is show Tailwind's awesome power of making a website responsive so it'll look good on all screen sizes. By adding just a couple of classes, we'll be able to ensure that our page continues to look great and our website looks great on all pages, no matter what device that you're looking at. So thanks for sticking around in this one. Come back for the next one. It'll be ready in a couple days. And I will see you next time. Until then, have a good one.